What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Visenberg.
And I'm Michael Visenberg.
Welcome to Viseland. Welcome. Thank you guys for stopping in this week. If you were listening to us the past couple of weeks, we just finished our latest, so like our kind of March Madness timing mock draft. So you got to see one episode that featured the lottery. The next episode featured picks 15 to 30. So definitely check that out if you're still getting jazzed for the NBA draft. But what else has been going on, Mikey? What have you been watching?
I already hate our mock draft, and I feel like I'm going to change it eventually, very soon. But
Well,
yeah,
it's a very
we're
again, we're still at a very fluid time for the draft. But you know what? If you just want to hear,
I don't hate it.
if you just want to hear those names, again, like familiarize yourself with some of these guys. Good chance.
I feel like the best part of our mock drafts are we don't get like incredibly team oriented with it. We're more player oriented, and I just try and break down what the player is going to bring and all of those things. So yeah, at least I'm hoping that you learn a few things about the players or just get a better general idea of them as prospects. But yeah, we college basketball obviously being over. The big news today, which was just absolutely unfortunate, is that Jamal Murray looks like he's going to be out for the season. He tore his ACL on his left knee. And that was an absolute bummer and just kind of devastating news for a player who really was one of the stories of last season's playoffs and has become a very bright star in the league and somebody that you feel was going to help Denver go on another run this year. So yeah, it's just
definitely like reshapes like Denver's sort of playoff outlook because of really getting that like who's going to replace that outlook. Yeah, it's just it sucks. You never like to see it, especially ACL. Can be an injury that does take some time to come back from.
Yeah.
As well, not saying that he will come back, but it just again it's going to really change Denver's outlook a little bit and just playing at a good at a good level. And we obviously are huge fans of him over here. We had him as our number one Canadian currently in the league, and it's just you never like to see it. It's never not the way you want to see anyone go out.
Yeah, it was dreadful. It was like you could just tell he was in quite a bit of pain when it happened last night. Stephen Curry was having an incredible evening as well, and as much as he had been having knee issues, it did look like he was limping around at times yesterday as well, and it was a non-contact injury, so that's also usually a very bad sign. It was just something that you just don't want to happen to anybody, and you don't want injuries to happen to anybody, much less one of our favorite players. So yeah, it was Denver was just looking so promising as a team as well with the acquisition of Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, they really
Michael Porter Jr. become like one of the favorites for most improved player this year, just with an increased role basically, but yeah, still doing his thing as an incredible offensive talent and getting better as a defender as well. But yeah, like Jamal Murray is somebody that the Nuggets usually rely on quite a bit as a scorer. And I think this is going to be like a big test for who I felt was the MVP favorite and still is, but Nikola Jokic for the rest of the season. Like this is a big test. Like he's probably going to have to take even larger offensive responsibility. I think the award's still kind of up for grabs right now. I know that's like I always feel terrible even talking about it with an injury like Jamal Murray's just happening, but yeah, that's another storyline. But yeah, like the ultimate thing is we feel terrible about Jamal Murray and are hoping for a full recovery as soon as possible. I know it's kind of a long road ahead. ACLs.
He'd also committed to Team Canada too, so obviously that's completely noted. No, for sure, because he's it'll probably miss a little bit of the beginning of next year as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I think the quickest somebody's come back from an ACL is like 6-8 months, but usually a little longer than that even. Just you want to be as sure as possible. Like you wanted to mention Stephen Curry. He in that same game, Stephen Curry did score 53 points. He needed 19 points, I believe, to pass Wilt Chamberlain as the all-time leading scorer of the Golden State Warriors. Steph did it in, I believe it was 795 games. And he did have an incredible performance. He's one of, I think he's the only player actually of all time to have multiple games of 10 or more three-pointers and 10 or more free throw attempts. And that's absolutely incredible. One of only 4 players, and this includes Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and James Harden, to have 3 50-point games in multiple seasons. So Steph, 745 games to get to the Warriors' all-time record. And I believe Wilt Chamberlain had that record in 429
games. That's what I was going to say. It's like Steph has been going at it for a long time, and Wilt did not spend his whole career.
Just obviously a different time, but Wilt Chamberlain in his career with the Philadelphia and San Francisco Warriors averaged 41.5 points per game, I believe. And the guy was, for anybody that sleeps on Wilt Chamberlain as an all-time player, I can't get past the absolute legend status, the insane athleticism and movement skills and strength. I feel like Wilt would have been a dominant player in any era. But beyond that, obviously Stephen Curry is a dominant player in this era, and I think he's another player who would have been dominant in any era as well, because he is just a tremendous basketball talent. And I'm almost thinking Stephen Curry is even with what the Warriors are doing, what Stephen Curry is doing this season is absolutely incredible. And I think he's at least in the MVP conversation as well, even with
he's
kind of fighting for the play-in spots.
Yeah, so this is definitely a year where he can take advantage of something like that as well, because obviously traditionally they would not be in that 8 seed, but he can maybe play as.
After last year, you were kind of hoping to just make the playoffs, and I think we had kind of predicted they would be somewhere in this range. But what I will say is another thing that just came up is Mark Cuban kind of Luka Doncic saying oh my God, I'm gonna have to be in one of these playing games potentially, and Mark Cuban being I know we all voted for it, but it seems like a giant mistake. I think it makes things interesting, but that's something that it's tough. It's tough when you even I think they do something like that in baseball where they kind
of have that one game wildcardy thing. I guess
that seems like an entire season going into this one little thing. It seems pretty I know it creates some interest, but then it seems like it's going to be condensed as well, and I think playing a game every day potentially for a few days. So
and also 72 games versus the 82. It's still a pretty good sample size of gunning for those traditional playoff positions. So it's a little.
Yeah, well, I think last year they would have done it even without there being this. Even if there were 82 games, I think they were going to do it. So
they're going to experiment and try, but we'll see how it plays out. But I
don't know. I
understand Luka's frustration.
I get what it gives incentive to kind of win for the teams in 11th to 12th place and everything like that. But at the same time, I kind of understand where these players are coming from, and where being in potentially the 7th seed, you could potentially miss the playoffs.
Like you cannot
that's pretty crazy.
You cannot get a real chance, at going through.
Like, just hopefully like no injuries or anything like that. Like that would just be absolutely terrible.
And then we also had the Blazers this week. Had Enes Kanter get a franchise record, 30 rebounds.
Yes, which was awesome because it was against Mason Plumlee. And as we know, Mason Plumlee is not necessarily an enemy of Viseland, but he's not one of our favorites.
He's an enemy for you. Again, he wasn't my favorite player, but
shut up.
I don't take it that personally.
Whatever, man.
And we turned it in.
He's an enemy for you. Oh yeah. What were you saying about Mason before the show, Jason?
Probably not good things.
Yeah. I totally made that up, but yeah. Nonetheless, yeah, it's fun because Mason Plumlee was traded famously for Yusuf Nurkic, and one of the highlights of my life, and this will show you how kind of pathetic it is a game, Nurk's first game in Portland against Denver, and he went for a 30 spot. Jokic only had I think 17 or something like that. He outplayed Jokic, but Mason Plumlee coming up with that donut was extra sweet. It was it was like a playoff atmosphere. They were jockeying for position. Portland ends up getting the 8th seed that year by 1 game. And I would like to think that this was the game. Portland was 41-41, Denver was 40-42. It was sweet stuff. So yeah, Portland has to take the little wins every now and then, and that was I believe the height of Nurk fever. So yeah, good memories.
We still got it, but as we were saying,
thank you for the 30 spot.
Yeah,
rebounds, crushing Sidney Wick's franchise record of 27.
Well, and also Terry Stotts was also saying this year he feels this is the deepest team he's ever had with the Blazers.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't feel they're pretty deep, but let's not go crazy here. Portland's bench isn't necessarily the envy of the league. Oh God.
We will see. We still got some time left, and obviously,
I will say Portland's bench is better than last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, this being the deepest Blazer team. Oh man, Blazers. Some changes need to be done. I've been doing a couple podcasts with my friend Keith Feltner Smith and AQ. We've been talking Blazers on Trailcasters podcast, so gotta give them a shout out. Should be releasing tomorrow as well. We had recorded a podcast not so long ago, but yeah, a lot of talking about Stotts and McCollum, and of course enjoying the good moments, which not like tonight, but Enes Kanter gained 30 rebounds against the Pistons.
Super exciting. And if you got the Blazer fever, definitely check out the Trailcasters. That'll definitely give you that cure that you're looking for. But as we
basketball fever,
I mean, in general. But as we mentioned earlier, college basketball is done. It's behind us. We're focusing on the draft. But you know what? We're also going to kind of take a look back at something. Jared Butler was named Final Four Most Outstanding Players. So as you know, we love top 10 lists. So we've gone ahead and we've taken a look at the last 10 winners of that award and just kind of gone ahead and ranked them on our, kind of scale of how they were as a prospect NBA outlook and outcome.
Yeah, somewhere along those lines.
Yeah, and it's just, it's ranging from 2011 because we had no player last year, but starting this off, we go to
the last time. Yeah.
We go to 2013 at number 10, 2013 Louisville the champion, Luke Hancock.
Louisville supposedly the champion because I don't even remember that game being played. The NCAA says it never happened. But yes, it did happen. I watched it. I enjoyed it. It was a fun game. I was still living in Toronto at the time. and you saw a couple performances by players off the bench for both teams where you were like, that doesn't usually happen. And what I have to give it up for a player that came in that game and just made some dreams happen, and that was Spike Albrecht, who had 17 points off the
Yeah, I
bench.
think I remember that game too. He went from like maybe like 1,000 Twitter followers to like 20,000 just by like getting some big buckets. And yeah, he was
Still, yeah, it's funny. He had his offensive rating in that game, according to Basketball Reference, 121. His defensive rating, 137. So he certainly like scored points, but may have given some up as well. 17 points, 1 rebound. Very funny. But yeah, like obviously that was the year of Trey Burke for Michigan. And
also
as we mentioned, Trey Burke was the National Player of the Year that year.
And also the year of Kevin Ware as well, that horrific injury earlier in the tournament. That was just like,
well, thanks for bringing that up.
Super scarring, but it brought a lot of like eyes onto Louisville.
It brought people together. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It definitely did. And Louisville had a great team. They did. The guy you would not necessarily expect to be the most outstanding player in the tournament was Luke Hancock. And he was mainly off of the bench that year. He played in all 40 games. He was a transfer from George Mason and sat out the previous season. And he like shot absolutely lights out. It was 5 of 5 from 3.
Yeah, he's perfect for 3. And also he's the first person to ever get 20 off the bench since Ron Mercer did it for Kentucky
in a championship game.
Yeah.
Since so it was a great story, and like he just was sinking these shots that sunk Michigan's hopes. The player that I think Louisville had a couple guards who you would have thought might have been like favorites for the most outstanding player. Peyton Siva was kind of like the heart and soul of the team. He had won the Big East Conference MVP, or conference tournament MVP. And then Russ Smith was such an explosive scorer as well. Russ didn't necessarily set the world on fire in this one. Was 3 of 16 for 9 points. And then, Luke was like I believe the 5th or 6th leading scorer on the team, like, kind of like his position. Shane Bohannon was another player who, had a good game in this one. Wayne Blackshear, I believe, had been around forever at this point, or quite a while. And then, they had a future NBA player, Georgie Dang. So quite a roster. As far as what Luke Hancock ended up doing, he did come back that next year. Never really like all conference honors or anything like that. He was all tournament in this one, obviously won most outstanding player. And then he had a really brief time in Panionios, which is a team in Greece, and I think got hurt there and then came back and began his career. And he never really, I think he got a tryout with the Grizzlies, but was waived by them before the season even began.
Yeah, he had the calf injury is really what ended his professional career. So, but he was like really the out of the list, he's really the only I guess like more unexpected player to take home the award, because obviously like you did look at like Russ Smith, Peyton Siva, those are like the guys.
Mm-hmm. That is for sure.
But so that is our number 10. At number 9, we have 2017, a year that is still difficult for me to swallow. But
that is for sure.
North Carolina winning the championship over Gonzaga. Gonzaga's first time making that championship game. We have Joel Berry II playing on 2 bad ankles.
JB2. He was like he was super highly rated out of high school. And yeah, like just a solid player. I believe played for Each One Teach One in the EYBL. And I remember he either did really well in the Peach Jam or won a Peach Jam. He was like at least a 4-year contributor with North Carolina, 3-year starter, had done quite well that year as well. And he was at least all wooden like preseason. He shared a backcourt with at the time. Oh yeah, so it was they were a pretty like upperclassman laden team. They had Justin Jackson was I think their big scorer that year. Isaiah Hicks and Kennedy Meeks were their bigs. Theo Pinson gave like a nice little shot as well. So yeah, it was quite a team. And Joel Berry just was this kind of solid scoring guard for them.
Yeah, kind of the point, like running that point, and also he's one of the only players to ever get 20 or more in consecutive championship games because he had 20 the year before.
Yeah, man,
got 20.
That game was crazy.
The next year, yeah. Well, we'll get definitely we will get into that one because that was pretty awesome for me. Yeah, I still hate them because they beat Oregon in the Final Four, and so that is still tough for me because
well,
harken back to if Chris Boucher was healthy.
Definitely. Like if Chris Boucher was healthy, I believe it would have been over. But yes, we can only go back and feel those things. Like something you may not know about Jason and I is that we probably won't be happy until Oregon either gets another men's NCAA tournament championship or our women win an NCAA tournament championship, which was unfortunately robbed from us likely last year. Yeah. Another thing where we can only wonder. And
so if you wonder why we're angry, little things like that is what keeps it. But yeah,
we're generally not that angry, but yeah. Joel Berry was a highly rated recruit. His RSCI, I believe, was 25. Like he was considered, I think, by many like one of the better point guards coming into college in 2014. And like has a solid career at North Carolina, is playing for Besiktas right now, and actually playing with a prospect that we had talked about last week, Alperen Şengün. And Joel Berry's like had I think a solid overseas career. Got signed by the Lakers, just never played a game in the NBA.
Yeah, summer league. Yeah, they waited.
Yeah,
training camp. But hey, making some money overseas. Nothing wrong with that. You can still keep playing. But yeah, that 2017 North Carolina team will forever annoy me. But that championship game too is like they were so.
It was a great game. Yeah, it was against Gonzaga, and he definitely got the better of a point guard matchup against Nigel Williams-Goss and Josh Perkins. He didn't necessarily wasn't super efficient, but was certainly more efficient than they were. Had 6 assists as well. So yeah, 22 points, 6 assists, couple steals, and was certainly deserving of the most outstanding player that year.
And then number 8, we have 2019. We have Kyle Guy from University of Virginia.
Kyle Guy.
Definitely.
And another.
The Virginia championship is just interesting anyway, because they're coming off they won it after coming off the most disappointing season the year before as being the only number 1 team to ever lose to a 16 seed. Shout out to University of Maryland, Baltimore County Golden Retrievers. But yeah, I know going into that tournament, I got to be honest, in my bracket, no faith in UVA.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tony Bennett coaches up a pretty good team, usually.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I had them losing in the first round, but I certainly didn't have complete faith in them. That was for sure. but yes, like they were obviously one of the better teams that year. They finished with a 35-3 record. And then of course had two players who were also in the 2019 NBA draft, in Ty Jerome, who I felt was consistently their best player, like through that tournament run at least, and DeAndre Hunter, who was their best NBA prospect. But Kyle Guy was kind of like seen as their best college player, I guess, which is it's like kind of funny. Like I believe that year he won. No, okay. So
He was getting point. He was getting 0.2 more points a game than DeAndre Hunter. So he was at 15.4. Hunter at 15.2. So he was leading them in scoring.
Okay, yeah. So he was all ACC first team, and DeAndre Hunter was as well. Okay, yeah. But like the year before, I felt like he was all ACC first team, like on his own. And yeah. Okay. Yeah, like even over like Devin Hall. Yeah, well, the thing with Kyle Guy is he was always just like a fantastic shooter. Was a top recruit as well. Got to see him at the Adidas Nations, and he was. I remember he had a game against like some of like the top high school players. Had 31 points, then got hurt in that event, and wasn't able to play the rest of it, but certainly stood out in the brief time he was there. And yeah, like just had a nice 3 years at Virginia. Obviously sophomore and his junior year was all ACC first team. And it's like, it's hard to say, but like, I would think in this game, there's at least like a possibility that DeAndre Hunter should have won the most outstanding player. Like it was at least close. Like so DeAndre Hunter ends up scoring 27 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist. And the thing that he often gets credited for in this game also is like not shutting down Jarrett Culver, but like holding Jarrett Culver to 5 of 22 from the field, not scoring anything from the 3-point line. And then as I said, like Ty Jerome is only 6 of 16, but scores 16 points, has 8 assists. Kyle Guy like is kind of like his usual thing. Is like 24 points, 1 steal, and 3 rebounds with no assists. It was like efficient shooting, and I do remember like it took DeAndre Hunter like a while to get going, but yeah, like I feel like at the very least it was probably a pretty close deal as far as most outstanding player in this championship game.
And they were pretty balanced attacks. So in their Final Four game, Ty Jerome, Kyle Guy, DeAndre Hunter combined for 50 of the 63 points.
Yeah. So and I think for most of the season, like it seemed like
that was kind of like the like Diakite was more of like defensive end guy.
Yeah.
But definitely
undersized center, and then well, it's hard to say Mamadi is too undersized, but yeah. Yeah, this was also like this was a crazy tournament run. Like there was that point where it looked like Ty Jerome might have gotten away with something in that and I think it was the Auburn game. And yeah, like they also had that game against Purdue, I think, where it was just it was nuts. It was Kihei Clark throwing that insane like full court pass instead of like hucking up a shot to Mamadi Diakite and him scoring like a 16-footer to send it to overtime, where they beat Purdue in overtime. So yeah, pretty crazy tournament run, really good team. And I guess Kyle Guy was kind of like seen as like the heart of the team. Like he was their, he was definitely their kind of like scorer. And yeah, like was barely leading scorer over DeAndre Hunter. But yeah, like he was definitely like the big shooting specialist for them.
And it ended up getting traded to Sacramento.
Yeah,
And
drafted by the Knicks, trade to Sacramento, and still kind of trying to find his way in the NBA.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, he's only played in 22 games thus far this season. But hey, per 36, looks like about 15 points a game, but obviously not getting 36 minutes. So he is coming home at 2.9 points per game right now. But yeah, it's only like under 7 minutes a game. So not getting a ton. But still, second year, so still early in his career. But moving on, we have someone who's a little bit.
At least he made it.
Yeah, he's there, and someone who's a little bit more mature in their role is number 7. We have 2016. We have Ryan Arcidiacono.
Yes,
and that's the game you referenced earlier, because that, if you don't have a chance to watch the last like minute and a half, the best.
That was
of recent memory.
The best, to me, the best NCAA tournament championship ever. That ending was just insane. Marcus Page hits this absolutely absurd shot, and
he gets
figure
stuck,
it's going into overtime.
Gets stuck in the air and just has to like put it up.
Lock it up, yeah.
And he does.
Yeah, you figure it's going to overtime, and
Arcidiacono does a great job getting the ball, into that position, kind of like this little scoop pass.
He's a shuffle passer.
Yeah,
shuffle passer to Chris Jenkins
coming off,
and Chris Jenkins nails that buzzer beater. So
that firework as soon as he hits it. That's the best part. Like the fireworks, like literally like 2 seconds after he hits the shot.
Yeah. Oh, it was nuts. And yeah, like I would say the heart and soul of that team was Josh Hart. Like Josh Hart was the guy. Chris Jenkins obviously as well, but yeah, Arcidiacono has a great championship game, and was a really like just a great career for Villanova. He was a 4-year starter, like pretty high-ranking guy out of high school as well. 55 in RSCI. He and in that championship game, he ends up as not the high scorer, because Phil Booth actually scored 20 points off of the bench, but he was the high scorer as the starter. Couple assists, couple rebounds, efficient 6 of 9 shooting, 4 of 6 from 2, 2 of 3 from 3, and like I guess it would be hard to take it away from him. Like nobody really crushed it, I would say, in this game for Villanova. It was kind of like that group effort.
Like he pretty cheap. But yeah, he was like the one that was keeping it all kind of together. But yeah, also played really well in the tournament. In the tournament, he was getting on jump shots. He was getting 63%.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, he was definitely on a good time. And then as far as like him after that, professionally, it looks, he's been on the Bulls. This is his 4th year, but it looks like, he's kind of taken a little bit of a dip in his minutes played. This is kind of the lowest that he's had thus far in his career.
As the Bulls are kind of trying to get back into the playoff picture. Arcidiacono, it's only playing 10.7 minutes per game after playing quite a bit in his second season. He took a year in between also before I think even getting to the NBA. So
yeah, because he would have been in that 2016 draft. So he doesn't enter the NBA until 2017-18.
Yeah.
But it looks like he signed with the Spurs and then waived by the Spurs. Then he signed a 2-way with the Bulls, was able to make that stick happen. But yeah, it's interesting thing about this award is it's sometimes, it is going to that guy that, it could be a heart and soul of the team, but not necessarily like, bona fide NBA.
Yeah, I think that's the
correlation there.
You found so far with these rankings. Like,
yeah,
when we rank the Wooden Award winners, these are some of like the best college basketball players, but even then, that's no like guarantee that they'll end up being like a NBA MVP
Stars,
or
but
anything like
you
that.
usually get like first round
Yeah.
pick vibe, like
This
that.
is this is like the real one shining moment. Like
Yeah.
for some of these guys, like this is the game, and if you can kill it in this game, like that's a big deal for the rest of your life. But yeah, Arcidiacono does end up making it to the NBA. Has at least been around for a while, and yeah, like it's just that third point guard kind of role. But yeah, like he's still hanging in there. You wonder how much longer he's going to be in the NBA, but the fact that he was undrafted and did end up making it, did end up sticking around in Chicago, still very impressive.
And then coming in at number 6, we have someone who is like, someone else later on this list. He was someone who was on another championship team earlier in his career when he wasn't as much of a factor, but we're talking 2014 Shabazz Napier, his senior year, UConn, and basically him just carrying them from, conference tournament onward and really just setting them up for that run.
Yeah, it was definitely impressive. He was a consensus first team All-American as a senior. And then like was all Big East first team as a junior. Yeah, AAC player of the year. It was a hell of a run. It was like they came in as a 7 seed, and yeah, like it was just it was kind of like a carry job. Like that was
it was like Kevin Ollie's first year as coach, wasn't it? First or second year, like Kevin Ollie was still pretty early in his run there, and then they just
like you have DeAndre Daniels, Ryan Boatwright as the next 2 guys, and then you had like Niles Gaffai, Lasan Chroma, Amita Brima, and that was when he was kind of like seen as a possible NBA prospect and was like a shot blocking specialist basically. But yeah, like it was a huge reliance on the man known as Shabazz Napier. He also like got I remember like a tweet shout out from LeBron James, and like he was the kind of like favorite underdog draft pick. He does end up going 24th to Miami, and that was, I think, I'm guessing Miami obviously liked him, but it was kind of like people, I just remember people being like, oh, maybe like they'll be able to keep LeBron James, and they were not able to do that. That wasn't swaying LeBron or moving the needle very much. But yeah, Shabazz was like a player that started off where I was like, this guy over dribbles like crazy. It wasn't like a player I really loved watching early on, and then just seemed to get a lot better and just improved as a shooter, improved his decision making a great deal. His last year also, he was like grabbing close to like 6 rebounds too. Like the guy was really, really good by the end of his time there. And I felt like he's become like a pretty decent NBA, at least like backup or third point guard as well. He's not with the team right now, which is a little surprising. He did play with Puerto Rico, and they made like a Maribasket. It was he and JJ Barea, I believe, were kind of leading the charge there. But yeah, Shabazz Napier, another player, like it was funny. I remember this, like talking about this with Fran Fraschilla at the Nike Hoop Summit, and we were talking about some draft prospects in 2014, and he goes, "I'm a big believer in Shabazz Napier," and there was a player that he wasn't a big believer in who went above Shabazz Napier, and is no longer in the NBA. But yeah, it was. And that was the year where Fran became a superstar because of the 2 years away for Bruno Caboclo. But no, yeah, nonetheless, it was a fantastic NCAA tournament run for Shabazz Napier. In the final game, he scores 22 points, has 3 assists, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, 8 of 16 from the field. And then, Miles Gaffey steps up from double digits. Ryan Boatwright was kind of their other like big gun. I think some people kind of like DeAndre Daniels as an NBA prospect, but he never really stuck around. And like it seems like most of the other guys on the team never even kind of came close. So this is like a real like college team with a player who and like the other thing is, and yes, like this Kentucky team didn't necessarily like live up to billing. They did finish 29-11, but they were still like a team full of NBA talent prospects. You had the Harrison twins, you had James Young, you had Julius Randle, you had Dakari Johnson. The guys off the bench, and it was a really young team, but they got to the NCAA tournament final. And like no small achievement beating that team. So it was very cool that Shabazz Napier, like it seemed like UConn didn't necessarily have like this incredible season, but they had I think a great Big East run and then an incredible NCAA tournament run.
And it's just interesting that he's not on, he's not on a roster right now. Last year he played a little bit on Minnesota, then he ended up on Washington there, but he was getting like 10 a game. So it's interesting. Like Isaiah Thomas, I know just got signed for a little playoff run. So, who knows if Shabazz gets another chance at, but yeah, he was kind of, eking out a role as, that kind of off the bench guard.
Yeah. I think that part of the reason he scored so much was it was like at a point where the Wizards had they weren't doing very well. So maybe that's why he got kind of a larger role. But yeah, like I thought when he was with the Trailblazers, like he was a good backup point guard.
Yeah. Someone
he did some good things.
Spell Dame for a little bit and, keep up an offensive tempo and be that threat.
Yeah.
So
a guy who certainly can create a little bit. Hasn't necessarily been like the best NBA player, but I think like a little bit above replacement level. And if you can get him for like a minimum contract, I think it's probably still worth a shot. Oh, though one thing I did find with Shabazz Napier, he's already 29 years old. And so he was a year younger than Kemba Walker when he was a freshman and Kemba was a junior. So that was one like small thing. Like he was a little bit older for class, a little bit older when he came into the NBA. I think that was part of the difference. Also, I don't think he was quite as explosive or quick laterally as
physically framed too. He's 6'6", but 175 as well.
Yeah. And then Kemba was tiny also, but yeah, it's just I think there were definitely some differences there. I just think Kemba was a little bit quick, well, definitely quite a bit quicker. You'll have to wait and see where we have Kemba Walker. And then we should have kind of had this as a lead, but like Jared Butler still hasn't made it to the NBA yet. We're having him at 5 on pure speculation. I think Jared Butler is a good player. I think he's going to go in the first round this year. I'd be a little surprised if he didn't. I think he's a definite talent. And Jared Butler is, on speculation, my 5th ranked player. I feel like once he gets to the NBA, like he's somebody who could contribute and has just been so good for Baylor the past couple years and was one of the best players in college basketball this year.
He's the first player to get 20.7 assists in a championship game since Carmelo Anthony.
That is
2003.
That is really cool. And yeah, I thought he was fantastic against Gonzaga. One of the better ball handlers in the NBA draft this year. Like the efficiency from Jared Butler. 20.4 box plus minus in that game. His offensive rating is a 174. Like that's nuts. Just in the game against Gonzaga. So yeah, he was kind of lights out in that one. The 4 3-pointers being really big, 7 assists as well. And then the 0 turnovers, I think, is the other thing. Like the
And
thing with Jared Butler. Oh, what were you saying?
They're just a great backcourt too, and he's
Oh,
kind
for
of
sure.
the
Even Davion Mitchell, for sure. Yeah, Davion Mitchell, I would think might even be. I don't know. He probably would be around the same spot for me, but yeah, I think they're both useful NBA players. The area that Jared Butler kind of needed to work on was with like his playmaking and decision making, and I think he did an outstanding job showing that this year. Was just I know his assisted turnover ratio like really improved, and yeah, he finished with 4.8 to 2.8, but the year before he was 3.1 to 2.4. So definitely quite a rise there. Also improved his 2-point percentage quite a bit, improved his 3-point percentage. Still, like throughout his college career, shot 78.2% from the line, which certainly, like, you would hope for maybe a little more, but like that's not a bad sign at all. And yeah, like he may not have the explosive athleticism of Davion Mitchell, but I certainly think he has some skills that are going to make him a pretty good NBA player potentially, and somebody that I feel is likely going to be around for quite a while, and could potentially even go higher than the player that is directly in front of him.
Yeah, and we'll also definitely hear his name a lot more as we go through more mock drafts and more different scenarios and everything like that. So definitely Jared Butler, we like him.
Definitely do.
Number 4, we have 2015 Duke wins a championship. Nobody's excited about that, but it did happen. And the most outstanding player for that team, you look at any Duke team really, but you look at this team, there are a lot of guys, and this guy was one of the great player, but not that the number one person that you were thinking, but he really led them, and especially in that championship game. That's Tyus Jones.
Yeah, Tyus Jones definitely had the best championship game out of the fantastic Duke freshman class that they had.
Yeah, Jahlil Okafor was the dude. Like he was the one that, NBA was very buzzing on.
The cool thing was the year before those. So Justice Winslow, Tyus Jones, Jahlil Okafor all play in the Nike Hoop Summit. They all play really well in the game, and like you could just see kind of like the cohesion between them that kind of almost reminded me, not saying their games reminded me of them, but just the how well they played together reminded me a bit of the Kentucky guys in the 2011 Hoop Summit game with Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and Marcus Teague. So yeah, like I think it was a good sign of things to come. The game that I think everybody was kind of dying to see, or at least hoping to see, was Duke versus what at the time going into the NCAA tournament was an undefeated Kentucky team with their platoons, and they did not get to the NCAA tournament championship. The team that got there instead was a team that had lost on a last second shot to Kentucky the year before to in the Final Four, and that was Wisconsin. So Wisconsin got their revenge. They had Frank Kaminsky, of course, and Sam
Kaminsky method. Yep.
Yeah. And but yeah, and Jahlil Okafor kind of like not necessarily the best last couple games of the NCAA tournament. Tyus Jones took the scoring lead in this one, and then a big scoring performance from Grayson Allen off the bench. Justice Winslow with 11 points, 9 rebounds. But yeah, Tyus with 23 points, only 1 assist, but 5 rebounds. And then it was 7 of 7 from the free throw line, 2 of 3 from 3. He was, yeah, he was the guy here. at Hoop Summit, one of the cool things was that was the year where Peyton Pritchard was a sophomore going up against the senior Tyus Jones, takes it to him early on. I felt like Tyus eventually got like a little the better of him in the end, but the fact that a sophomore was taking it to one of the top ranked players in high school basketball and Tyus Jones, he was the 7th ranked player in the RSCI. Really big deal. He was out of Minnesota, and he went to Apple Valley, which is the school that Gary Trent Jr. went to before going to Prolific, I believe. But yeah, Tyus in the EYBL, I just remember like him as an underclassman, like being one of the leading scorers, and I think like putting up like a 40-point game with Howard Pulley. He was like Tyus Jones was seen as this guy who was a pretty big time point guard prospect. I think you came to realize that he didn't necessarily have the like top flight athleticism that maybe some of the players that he was being compared to had, but still is like just I think somebody that the draft people genuinely liked maybe a little bit more than even the NBA. And I think he's been like just a really effective backup point guard when he's had the chance. And then he started off, he was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers, traded to Minnesota, and he, playing for his home state team, does pretty well. It shows like these nice flashes and ends up signing like a really nice backup, like for backup money, basically, like which is at this point the crazy amount of $8 million per year. But yeah, he's been with Memphis and he's been John Morant's backup, and just a really solid player and somebody who can even step in as like a spot starter, and you just have confidence in him running your team.
Yeah, just good decision making. Like not, he's never for his career he's yet to average more than 1 turnover a game.
Yeah.
So like he's just a decision making, game managing point guard.
Yeah, and I just also think like he's solid instincts on both ends of the floor. Like while he's not like a insane like jump out of the gym athlete or anything like that, he's just really smart and knows where to be. Always has been like good at getting steals also, and he is at least like he's not necessarily like this year he's only shooting 32% from 3, but like I would say a solid shooter, and then 81.5% from the free throw line. So yeah, like that good game manager to be your backup point guard.
And then coming in at number 3, this is an interesting case on a couple different levels. We're talking 2018 Villanova. If you listen to our Wooden Award episode, Jalen Brunson was the winner of that Wooden Award, but it was a bench player, Donte DiVincenzo, coming away with the most outstanding player. He was also part of that 2016 team, although not getting a ton of playing time on that team.
Yeah.
But definitely someone that like put himself on the map within that tournament.
He did put his name down, flip it, and reverse it.
Yeah.
Especially in this game. He had some really great athletic moments, scores 31 points off of the bench. And he was their 6th man. Like he did start 10 games that season, but was mainly their 6th man. Jalen Brunson with kind of a quiet offensive game, surprisingly enough. But like it was a relative blowout as well. But like just a really good Villanova team. Mikal Bridges was seen as their best NBA prospect. They had Omari Spellman and Eric Pascal, both of whom were drafted. Oh my God, here's the other crazy part. They have Colin Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels, who just announced that they're both coming back for an additional season.
I saw that with Colin Gillespie.
That's crazy. And Villanova should be a pretty highly ranked team with them back in the fold. Hopefully Gillespie is okay, because he'd missed the end of the season due to injury. But yeah, it was quite a performance. And like, I usually feel like the rule is that players are genuinely like judged by their full body of work, and the NCAA tournament can help, but like it doesn't necessarily like boost guys' stock like out of this world by NBA standards. I would say that Donte DiVincenzo in the NCAA tournament, like definitely at least helped his stock. And I wouldn't be surprised if his play in the last few games of the NCAA tournament, like did take him up like another little level there. I think he was always a player that some teams were interested in. They liked he made some great defensive plays, I remember, in this game also. And then, even showed some passing ability, just that huge spark off of the bench. And now the crazy part is that Donte DiVincenzo, who was almost like a six man for the entirety of his college career, has become a starter on one of the better teams in the NBA. And yes, he may be like the fifth starter, but yeah, a starter nonetheless, an important player.
And he's gonna get it. Yeah, he's gonna get that chance to do stuff in the playoffs.
He's had a really nice year for Milwaukee this season.
He started all 51 games so far.
Yeah, averaging 5.6 rebounds per game, and 10.7 points, 3.1 assists, 1.2 steals. And he is shooting a career best. He's improved every year he's been in the league, but right now he's at 38.4% from three on making 2 threes per game. He's like, you could see early on he was a really nice piece for Milwaukee, and last year played a very important role as mostly their sixth man. But I think he kind of claimed that spot like at the end of the season, and then he's been that fifth starter for them this year.
No, he's a fun player to watch. But yeah, for me, like that tournament was like, I hadn't really heard of him that much, thought of him in that light. Definitely put on. But yeah, it's always interesting too, because yeah, you usually think, Jalen Brunson winning the Wooden Award, because sometimes like this award can be kind of that like just give it to the captain.
Yeah.
I think Donte really played himself into it. But yeah, Michigan, unfortunately, did not have the best luck in either of those championship games that they were playing in.
Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman had 23 points in that game. Mo Wagner with 16. Isaiah Livers was their fifth starter in that season, and he had a donut, unfortunately. Duncan Robinson with a donut in that game in 22 minutes. A young Jordan Poole finishes with only 3 points. So yeah, team full of guys who are in the NBA or were close to the NBA. Even like Xavier Simpson scored in double digits in that game. And I think he got at least a shot with the Lakers this year. But yeah, it was definitely like Villanova, I think, was the favorite going into that tournament, and they pulled it out.
And then number 2, we talked about him earlier because of the, team won a couple years later. We're talking number 2, Kemba Walker, UConn. Shabazz Napier on this team, but a little bit more of a role player. He's getting about 7 a game, but Kemba Walker, similar to what Shabazz did a couple years later, carries this team from the ACC tournament, or was it Big East tournament? Sorry, Big East tournament at the time.
Yeah, it was Big East.
And I remember like Syracuse was like a 6 or 7 overtime game against Syracuse. They had one game that was like at the Madison Square Garden that was like going on forever. And the thing I'll say about Kemba then is the same thing I will say about him now, is that step back jump shot is just money.
For sure. And yeah, he had that famous one against Pitt. They had to win 5 games in the Big East tournament to win the tournament. Like they didn't even get a bye. It was still when the Big East, I think, had more teams, but Yeah, Kemba, just tremendous individual performance that year. Was one of the best players in college basketball. I believe he was at least, I'm pretty sure was, consensus first team All-American that year. All Big East, of course, and Big East tournament MVP. Yeah, the guy definitely. He was also the Bob Cousy Award winner, and one of the finalists for the Wooden Award. Kemba, that entire tournament run was so big time, and that was the second year in a row that Butler made the NCAA tournament championship.
And the year before, Hayward had that shot at the end. I mean, obviously half court shot, but they were close.
For sure. And then, this was just Brad Stevens pulling the college miracle there. The second player on that Connecticut team was Jeremy Lamb. Jeremy Lamb was a freshman. He had a really good year. And then Alex Oriaki, I remember, had a double-double in that final as well, 4 blocks. They had a guy like Roscoe Smith, who I think was kind of a big high school prospect. Didn't score anything, but they had I remember they definitely won with Kemba kind of carrying the offense and then some of the other guys making up for the defense a little bit. Kemba doesn't necessarily kill the NCAA final, but scores 16, has 9 rebounds, gets a steal, only 5 of 19 from the field. But it was an ugly game. They end up winning 53-41. So this seemed like a game from the 60s basically. But nonetheless, it was just an incredible March performance and into April, obviously, with the NCAA tournament with Kemba Walker. And he was just I don't want to say this necessarily boosted his draft stock, because I think it was always pretty high. As soon as it got to a certain point during his senior season, I remember him really rising up draft boards. But the amazing thing with Kemba is he does end up being the 9th pick in the draft, and he obviously taken by Charlotte. I shouldn't say obviously, because maybe some people don't know, but was taken by Charlotte. This is a great draft. And if you did a redraft, you likely have him as the 5th pick. And it would be, obviously I would take Kawhi Leonard 1, Jimmy Butler likely 2, Kyrie Irving 3, Klay Thompson 4. I'm sure there are fights over who goes between those 3 guys. And then I would probably have Kemba Walker as the 5th pick there. So he was a really good value pick. And then I think honestly, one of the better players in Charlotte since they've been back as an expansion team, in their franchise's history there. And I remember, a few of the players that go before him are Jan Vesely, Bismack Biyombo, and Brandon Knight. And I remember Brandon Knight and Kemba Walker being a real conversation.
Yeah, no, that was
and
a debate.
Kemba just kept getting better and better. Been a multiple-time All-Star, and he's been a 4-time All-Star. Yeah.
It took him 5 years, but he made 4. He didn't make it this past year, but oddly enough, after Charlotte, he makes his way to Boston to play for the person he beat in the championship. So
true enough.
He's got he's got Brad Stevens coaching him up now. So, I guess based on this year, maybe not coaching up, but coaching on that.
Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier, just obviously Kevin Ollie was the coach by the time it was Shabazz, but it was just kind of that similar structure at the very least. He certainly learned something from Jim Calhoun on this one.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where it's they're hanging on for their lives in the conference tournament. They're both like two of the most very impressive March runs. And then at our number one, this man, we have talked about him a couple times because he is extremely good. And this was a superstar studded Kentucky team, but we're talking number one, 2012, Anthony Davis, freshman Kentucky. They played Kansas in the championship game. They came, they saw, they conquered. This was a really, really solid team. You look at, so it's like Anthony Davis, the guys that went on to the NBA, Anthony Davis, Doran Lamb, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Terrence Jones, Marcus Teague, Darius Miller, Kyle Wiltshire, who transfers out, ends up at Gonzaga. But these are all guys like from this team that, made it. And, you're looking at the top picks in the draft that year, Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist were like those top two guys, really. Just a unstoppable player. And again, like not nearly as insanely, he got more refined offensively, I think, now in the NBA, but just both ends of the court dominance.
I am just trying to see. Anthony Davis is the best, most outstanding player winner, since who? Because it's been a while since there has been one who has been as good, by NBA terms, as Anthony Davis, even by college terms, I would say. And I'm trying to think. I'm thinking it's either Patrick Ewing or maybe even Hakeem Olajuwon, which is kind of amazing because Hakeem Olajuwon never won the NCAA tournament, but he was the most outstanding player. That's pretty amazing.
Historically that was possible. The past 20 plus years, it's been the dude from the team.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard to in that North Carolina State game. Yeah, I can understand. And then that next year, it's kind of cool because Hakeem makes it to the finals 2 years in a row and loses both times. But in that second time, he plays Patrick Ewing in Georgetown, and Patrick Ewing ends up winning most outstanding player. And then they go on to play, I believe it was almost exactly 10 years later. And they play each other in the NBA finals, and Hakeem wins this time, but for his first championship. But yeah, so it had been a while since a player as dominant in both college basketball and eventually in the NBA. Melo is the one.
Yeah, I think Melo's the only player I think of as the closest guy that's Hall of Fame level.
Yeah. But I still feel like Anthony Davis is even on a different level there.
Oh no, totally. Because you look through the 90s, Rip Ham, not at that level either, but he's the only possible Hall of Fame kind of guy really in the 90s period as far as most outstanding players.
Yeah,
there.
The 90s has kind of a rough record there.
Yeah, because you're really the 90s. We'll run through them really quick. We got Anderson Hunt. Yeah. Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, Donald, Chris Williamson, Ed O'Bannon, Tony Delk, Miles Simon, Jeff Shepard. Cap it off with Rip Hamilton.
Yeah, it was rough. And so Anthony Davis, we've talked about him as a college player many times, but just absolutely dominant. That Kentucky team, one of the better teams, I think, in the last 10 years as well, maybe the best. They were just so damn good. And yeah, Anthony Davis, a very dominant player. You have the first pick, and you can argue that he shouldn't have gone second pick, but he was the second pick, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. As Jason mentioned, other NBA players as well, who at least stuck around the league for a while. Darius Miller, even just recently got cut, but had been around. And then Anthony Davis, obviously, amongst this group is the by far.
Yeah.
Not only was he by far the best college player and the only Wooden Award winner out of this group to win the most outstanding player in the NCAA tournament as well. go on College Basketball Reference and look at all the awards Anthony Davis won in his single year at Kentucky. It's a list. Like, it's just everything.
Well, it's interesting when you break this down though too. Yeah, like he's really the only Hall of Fame MVP kind of candidate. You know, Kemba's an all-star, and then after that, it's really,
yeah,
you know, a couple.
Kemba, I think, still has like a way to go to be a Hall of Fame level guy. I think he's certainly making an argument at this point, but yeah, Anthony Davis already like would be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, first ballot. Don't ask questions.
Oh,
Just put him in kind of thing. Where it's like, yeah, but it's interesting with the award. You got two freshmen between he and Tyus Jones, and really just it's not necessarily a direct KPI to NBA draft or NBA career longevity. It's just
he was the one and done team that got John Calipari the championship, and they were by far the favorite team that year. And then the other thing we should mention that I've mentioned, I know before, but in that final game, Anthony Davis goes 1 of 10 from the field, only 6 points on the game, but does finish with 16 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 6 blocks. For the year, he averages 4.7 blocks per game. He averages double-double as well. The guy was just so damn dominant. He leads Kentucky in scoring too. Like that's the other thing. Like, people talk about how amazing he was as a defender and that he still was kind of raw on offense, but yeah, still leads them in offense. Comes to the NBA, I think definitely improves his offensive game as well, and has led the NBA in block shots per game 3 times. I thought last season was his best season ever, just in terms of he was at his highest point. He and LeBron James in the playoffs were absolutely absurd, and his defense is incredible. Like, the Lakers are a fantastic defense, and he in the playoffs was the huge reason that was possible. Just his incredible versatility there. The guy moves so well. He's always been able to just glide off of the floor. And he's one of the best players in the NBA, has been for a while. And it started off with this. You certainly would hope so. We do know that injuries have been kind of a thing with him, and hopefully he's coming back in the next couple of weeks is supposed to be what's happening. The amazing thing is he is still only 28 years old. So yeah, you're hoping I think he's in the midst of his prime, but there should be at least a number of good years left, you would hope. And he's been a top 10 NBA player for quite a while, and hopefully for at least a few more years moving forward.
And that's the last 10 Final Four most outstanding players. So definitely check out our list. And if there's any guys that you think should be somewhere else, definitely let us know what your thoughts are. But yeah, I feel like this is pretty good ordering.
I like the order. But yeah, let us know where you think Jared Butler should be. If there are any other guys that you'd want to change around, like Shabazz Napier not being in the NBA right now. I still feel like he certainly has a shot to come back. But yeah, just let us know what you think. And we will have some more NBA draft stuff for you very soon. I know that's what you guys really dig, and my Twitter name being NBA Draft Mikey V and all. But yeah, we like doing these lists, and it's good to change it up every now and then.
Definitely. But yeah, thank you guys so much for stopping by and checking us out. But if you like us both, you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at Viseland. If you have any comments, concerns, questions, you just want to, shout your hoops opinions at us, viselandpod@gmail.com. You can always shoot us an email, leave us, any comments, subscribe, share with your friends. We definitely appreciate every review and every like and subscribe that we got. So thank you guys so much. If you want to follow him specifically on Twitter, as he stated, Michael Visenberg, NBA Draft Mikey V on Twitter. I am at Jay Visenberg. And thank you guys so much for checking out this episode, and we'll catch you all next week.